you done some meditation? नहीं 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 किया। कहाँ? घर पे किया। ओके, good. So please sit comfortably, upright if possible. Make sure your back is supported. Yeah, make sure you're not sitting on your wallet or your mobile. And allow the mind to slow down a bit. Maybe if we notice the mind has been quite speeded up during the day, meaning lots of things to think about, lots of things to accomplish. Body also may have been quite busy, or you may have been in a completely different place in the morning and now you're in Delhi. So all of it creates has an influence on the body and mind. So there can even be, of course, some stress, some fatigue. There can be a sense of restlessness. So just allow yourself to relax. Be upright, but relax, a sense of ease, as though you were in a very safe, comfortable place, which is home, one's real home. Of course, the real home, according to Buddhism, is the peace and harmony that is possible to experience within our own mind. That's our true home, really, where we feel totally attentive, relaxed, harmonious. And that is actually our natural potential, we could say, only temporarily disturbed by our way of living and our sanskars, the effects of our unwholesomeness. That is temporary, but actually, naturally, we are a combination of different, very positive, you could say, very positive attributes or factors. One is a sense of intelligence. We have a natural intelligence or wisdom. Second, we have a sense of, we might call it openness or ease, a sense of relaxation, sense of spaciousness, you might say. There's no sense of, without a sense of stress or hurry. And the third attribute is a sense of natural kindness, warmth, kindness. So these attributes, these qualities are there naturally, actually. But temporarily you could say we made a mess due to the effects of unwholesomeness based on the disturbing emotions in our mind, especially the ignorance, not understanding who we are properly at all. So when we sit upright and just let go and relax a little bit and bring our attention to the body, we are helping our body and mind to come into a sense of balance, more balance, sense of calm, sense of clarity. And with that also can come this sense of kindness. Yeah. So allow your body to just be upright but relaxed on the cushion. A sense of dignity and self-confidence comes with this posture. And the front of the body open. Very important, very appropriate. You see, we're living in this world, aren't we, with countless other people, countless other beings. And somehow, if we don't feel any responsibility for them, if we don't feel any responsibility for their kindness, for their happiness, for their freedom from suffering, then what happens is, what we see today. There's things fall apart. We behave in outrageous ways. We harm each other. We harm even our home, our planet. We are very careless. We become very careless, very greedy. We become very, selfish. So we need to remember our responsibility to others who, just like you and me, want to be happy, don't want to suffer at all. And they are suffering, you see. They are suffering due to the disturbing emotions and effects of karma, just like you and me. And the other big factor we always must remember, this is so important, and we forget it so much, is that other people, without other people, you see, we cannot survive. We depend on the kindness, if you like, of other people. Totally. Almost everything you heard or saw or tasted or touched or smelt today was put together by other people. Of course, some of it was unpleasant, but we depend on those things. The food, the houses, the roads, the transport, the clothes, all of that. All of that. Provided, manufactured, put together by other people. I doubt any of us grew our own food, owns a horse whom we feed, to transport us or something. And we certainly don't make our own clothes, most of us anymore. Maybe some older people knit their sweaters or socks for themselves and their family, but that's getting more and more rare because now other things have taken over our life. So you see, we depend on other people. And if you think about, if you think, oh, I'm a very hardworking person, I did everything myself, it's not true. You didn't make this body yourself. It came from the parents. You can argue correctly, maybe, that any of your good qualities, very good qualities, for example, they may also be due to actions that you have created in the past, even before this life. That's possible, for sure. But the body, this body through which we can manifest the actions, we didn't make that body. That came from mother and father, or whoever produced us. That's not our work. So you see, we depend on other people. So how can we, the argument then is, how can we completely neglect them? That is so selfish. To just forget about other people and think about oneself all the time, me, me, me. my happiness, my problem, my opinion, what I want. You see, this is all like a very dangerous and suffering producing mantra we have. I. So yeah. So if everybody could try and be as still as possible and simply be relaxed, pay attention to the breath, the fact that the breath is entering and leaving you, leaving the body through the nostrils, most probably. Be aware of that process and let there be a sense of relaxing as you breathe out. In a very relaxed manner, but attentive. Just please pay attention. The mind will wander, that is totally natural, but our job is to be aware, let go of the wandering mind, the thoughts that are coming, just let them go. Without tension, just let them go. And come back to the breathing. The sensation of your breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. So something very physical we have to pay attention to. Usually we pay attention if there's a sensation of pleasure or pain in the body, but here we're asking us to be simply attentive of a neutral, kind of a neutral sensation, the breath as it, the sensation of it at the tip of our nostrils, entering and leaving. See if we can be aware of that. With this overall motivation also at the back of our mind that we're practicing in order to be of some benefit to wider community of living beings whom are part of the human family and family of beings whom I rely on, and they rely on me. I can make their lives very difficult, or I can make their lives happy. That's up to me. So with that in mind, we need to calm the mind so that it can be a good foundation for developing very powerful good qualities. So let's sit quietly, engaging in this simple practice and watching the breath, being on the lookout for distracting thoughts, gently letting them go and coming back to the breath. paying close attention, but in a relaxed way. Gently letting go of any thoughts, coming back to the breath. Very calm, very clear. The sense also of kindness towards oneself. Sense of environmental warmth. Which naturally radiates when we are calm and clear, without stress. Okay, everyone, thank you. So we're investigating a teaching, a text that was put together, a text of a teaching by one of the nuns in our organization, Venerable Robina Courtin, who gave a teaching online for us 10 days ago or so. And it's a very important text, because it's dealing with the mind, it's dealing with cause and effect, karma, and it's dealing with how we can clean up the mind. And we, again and again, we've been using the example from our physical life, from physical world, how important it is, to have an environment. If we want to have, a good environment where friends come and enjoy and, can appreciate, then we need to have a good, clean environment, don't we, for guests. So we've been using that example, that if our house is full of junk, smelly, and hasn't been cleaned, and, then we cannot invite people, and we can't even live there properly ourselves. Actually, it does affect our minds. I know, because I've lived in situations where there are a lot of junk, and it definitely affects the mind. It affects very basic things, like if your house is full of enough junk, then you cannot even have guests come and stay with you. There's no spare place, there's junk everywhere. This also happens. So that happened with me. One of the rooms, a couple of rooms in my house, So we need to clean up as much as we can. And it's even more important with the mind, because the mind is full of impressions, you could say, seeds which have been planted again and again and again, beginninglessly. And we've been looking at how some aspects of cause and effect, karma, are easier to understand. For example, how we have habits. Some people have habits of speaking in a certain way, of thinking in a certain way, doing certain things with their body, some of which would be quite harmful for oneself and other people. We have these habits. Often it manifests in our speech. We can be very abrupt, very harsh. We can even lie. We can have a habit of not telling the truth or hiding the truth. We have many habits. So where do they come from? According to Lord Buddha, they come from habit. They come from practice. We have practiced these things before. And when have we practiced them? Previously, this life, but also in the past. So I don't want to go over everything again and again, which we've mentioned many times. But we all have to think much more carefully, perhaps, about cause and effect. And the fact that there is, according to Buddha, past and future experience beyond this body. Because the mind is not something physical only. It is connected with the brain right now, but it is not the brain. The mind is not the brain. The mind is much more than the brain. It survives the death of the brain. Certain aspect of mind survives the death of the brain, the death of the body, and goes on to future experience. So I urge people to, who are new to this, to read more about these things in many of the books of the Dalai Lama, or there's a classic book which is very useful for people, Tibetan book of Living and Dying. Not Tibetan Book of the Dead, that is a text which is quite hard to understand, but Tibetan Book of Living and Dying is very good. And there's a lot of books like this. We need to understand what the Nalanda tradition, the Buddhist tradition, that was became so amazing and prevalent in India, so powerful. We need to know what that tradition is saying about the mind, past and future lives, and so forth. And all of it originates in Lord Buddha's teachings. It's not something that Indian pundits or Tibetan lamas have made up. It's not the case. So there is a lot of material. We need to look at that. Yeah. Because otherwise we get stuck and we keep on thinking, no, this is not possible, and so forth. And if we think like that, then we won't think there's much of a problem. We'll say, yeah, okay, I have some problems. I have some bad habits, but so what? It's doesn't matter. It's only one life. So long as I don't harm people too much, maybe it doesn't matter. If we think like that, then that's very dangerous, because we have a lot to experience then. We have a lot of results to experience. It's as though we have planted unknowingly a lot of poisonous seeds in our garden, and we just can't remember. We don't care. We say it doesn't matter. And then we find that our garden is full of these poisonous plants, or also weeds, and that the good seeds we've planted, they just don't have a chance to flourish. There's not much space for them, or they get choked, and people cannot enjoy the beauty. So, yeah, cleaning up. So what I'm going to look at today, and see, today is one of the last sessions we have on this, the last session we have on this particular topic before the Tushita break. There's a break after the 15th of June. Until 15th June, there's going to be some great teachings from Venerable Jamyang, who's coming down soon from Dharamsala. But this will be the last teaching on this topic for a while. So we'll try and fit a few things in now before 8:15. Some of you know this material, and for you it's just revision, but it's very important, very, very important. So we're saying, what the Buddha is saying actually is that sansar, this whole cycle of repeated birth and death, rebirth, death, which is fueled not by wisdom and love and compassion right now for us. It is fueled, it is dominated by disturbing emotions, by ignorance, and by negative actions. Klesh karam ka khel hai, meaning a klesh means the disturbing emotions, delusions, and the actions we then create based on those deluded states of mind, motivated by anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, etc., greed, all these things. So this sansar, you see, is terrifying, because it's not going to stop on its own. If we take a spinning top, lattu leke usko lattu ko ghumayenge, it goes around very fast, but then it stops by itself, right? It stops after a while. If you're very good, you can make it go around for 45 seconds or something, maybe. I don't know what the record is, but it stops. But sansar doesn't stop on its own. Apne aap nahi rokega. We have to stop it. How we stop it is by eliminating ignorance. And if we eliminate the ignorance, the agyanta, the avidya, then naturally the attachment, the anger, the jealousy, the pride, all those things become stopped. But how to do that? We have to purify the mind of all of these tendencies which are distracting us, which are making our life and other people's lives miserable. And that is a big job. That is a very important and big task. And it's very important to remember that we have to do this inwardly. We have to work on our mind. No amount of political, social engineering is going to solve our problem. Yeah, come on. We have brilliant minds. We have brilliant technologies, amazing technologies. But why haven't we been able to solve our human problems, basic human problems? Why do we use our intelligence to make incredible weapons of destruction, which are being used, of course? And why are we having wars? Why are we having so many things? Why are we cutting down our, forests in such a crazy, stupid fashion? It's obvious that there is some problem with how we think. what we are thinking, how we are thinking, what is motivating us. So we have to purify our mind. We have to purify the qualities, the negative qualities in our mind, which are causing us to behave like maniacs, self-destructive, crazy people, really. If there are beings in outer space who've been looking at this planet for a long time, for say a few thousand years, of course, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas looking at this process, we had a very livable, very beautiful planet a few thousand years ago, a few hundred years ago even, you might say. Then very quickly, there's been this degeneration since we became very clever. We're very clever, but not very wise. So if you put something very powerful and dangerous and amazing in the hands of crazy people, then it's going to be very dangerous, right? So this is what has happened. Crazy, but very clever people. Unwise, clever people. That's very dangerous, you know? Better to be a little stupid, but not so dangerous somehow. But we are very, very clever, but not very wise. We are dominated by all kinds of negative emotions. This is creating all kinds of suffering. So to just remind you of suffering, those who have not heard much teaching on the Buddha on suffering, just remind us what it is that we are trying to purify the causes of. If we don't purify, then we keep on experiencing the results of negative karma, which is suffering. And if you want to, look at it in a brief fashion, there are three kinds of suffering. Those of you who have this text online or printed out at home, it's on page 24. Suffering. So there is suffering. There's the suffering we all understand, like you may be having now. Pain, restlessness, headache, fed up, bored, angry. There could be many things affecting you right now, which you can understand very easily. You may be hungry or thirsty, tired, or thinking, why is this idiot talking so much? Whatever. That's a kind of suffering. Second kind of suffering is much more subtle. It is a bit depressing, this second kind of suffering. Of course, the first is also depressing. If you break your leg, it's also depressing, right? It's very, problematic. Or if your house burns down or whatever things happen to us, someone abuses us. But the second kind of suffering is called the suffering of change. And it's depressing because we call this happiness. We call certain things happiness. Buddha calls it suffering of change. So it's like sneaky suffering. It's like honey on the razor's edge. You understand? Honey on the razor's edge. आप चूसने लगते हैं, आप टांग से नहीं, मुंह से, जबान से आप उसको वो करने लगते हैं. What is to lick in Hindi? चाटना शुरू करते हैं. नीचे ब्लेड है, विल्किंसन स्वॉर्ड या जिलेट या जो भी है, और आपका पूरा जबान जो है कट जाता है. Then you are drinking blood as well as honey. So our so-called happiness is like that. Badalta hai. It is not pure happiness. If it was pure happiness, all these things, the more we do, the more it should make us happy. So, eating, drinking, sex, drugs, rock and roll, how much can we enjoy? It starts off feeling very good. Your favorite food, maybe. If you're hungry and your mother makes your favorite food and makes it just right, of course, for a while it's like heaven. It's like bliss. But how much can you stand? How much can you eat before you get sick? So these things are not true causes of happiness. So it's kind of suffering of change. It's basically, as she says here, when attachment gets what it wants. Your attachment wants this, wants a person, wants a certain kind of food, wants a certain experience. You get that experience, but then it stops being so amazing when you have, how much can you enjoy? And then it stops, It feels good for a while because compared to what was before, it feels good. If you're hungry and you eat your favorite food, it feels good for a while in comparison with what was before. And then it changes. And it cannot last. In fact, many of these things make us sick. The things we enjoy most, they make most people sick because we cannot handle it. We don't know how to be moderate, and it will change anyway. The pleasure of all these things cannot last. So it looks to us like happiness when our attachment gets what it wants, but it does not last. It is fragile, and it changes. And then we have problems. So you don't have to look far. You meet someone, you're so happy to meet that person, then you cry when they leave. Or you think you have met the most wonderful person and you decide to marry them, but who knows what happens, And then you may be divorcing them or wishing they were dead, Many things like that happen. So anyway, suffering of change, you could be sitting comfortably, but how long does that last? You know that from your Tushita experience. You're very comfortable. You feel like, you feel like you're Buddha almost. Yeah, so amazing. But then maybe एक मच्छर आ जाता है या ये होने लगता है या पंखा ज़्यादा तेज है या ज़्यादा तेज होना चाहिए, जो भी है, and then you feel upset. Something is wrong. You're never fully satisfied. So there's no place, no experience in samsara. In samsara, remember the definition, our experience dominated by delusion and karma. At the moment, we are dominated by that. So long as that lasts, nothing can give us lasting happiness. Nothing whatsoever. It's just not possible. It's not possible. You can't think of anything that can give you lasting happiness while the delusion and karma is dominant, is operating. You ask, is there an alternative? Yeah, of course. There's liberation, there's Buddhahood, but for that we need to purify and to eradicate the cause of suffering. As I mentioned, the ignorance, the attachment, the anger, etc. वो अपने आप नहीं होता है. Not like a candle going out or, the lattu stopping, जब घूमना बंद हो जाता है, वो ऐसी बात नहीं है. खुद इसको रोकना पड़ेगा. Isn't it? And that is, of course, painful to hear for some people. They would like something very simple, very easy. Maybe Buddha has some special formula that we can do it very quickly. There is no such formula. We have to work at it. So the third kind of suffering, which we already mentioned, but we'll mention it more clearly now, it's called all-pervasive suffering. Matlab, it pervades everything in samsara. So this is subtle. We don't give it a name in our Western culture, at least, or even in our religions. We don't have a name for this. It is what we could call being born in the first place. We are born in the first place with this kind of body, which is the body, as she puts it, of a junkie, matlab a drug addict, addicted to wanting mind. Unhappy mind, There's no choice. This very body and mind are in the nature of suffering. That's the point. That's the third level of suffering. However magnificent you have a body right now, maybe you have the most beautiful body, and you love flaunting it on Instagram and people love looking at it, and very fit, very beautiful body, male or female body. And then you have maybe also, let's say you also are a brilliant person, you really have all these PhDs and you are regarded as very brilliant and you have very high IQ, all these things you have, let's say. You're still a junkie in that sense. You're still under the control of all pervasive suffering. Why? Because a tiny, you can be affected by cancer, AIDS, COVID, anything. Any kind of disease can affect you. Why? Because you have a certain kind of body. It's not a pure body of light or something. it's that a kind of body which is produced in an ordinary way, sperm and egg, and your mind, goodness me, we could be the most brilliant person in the world, but also you might be someone who, you know, your partner and children can't tolerate you. You're not kind to them. You're a very disturbed person in many ways, emotionally a child, mentally maybe brilliant, but emotionally still childlike, selfish, angry, jealous of other people who are seem to be as intelligent as you or whatever. So bahut kuch hai. Meaning our mind is disturbed, can easily be affected by the smallest thing. You know, somebody doesn't pay us enough respect, or our, you know, our cleaner or our car driver doesn't seem to be, you know, respectful enough today. It can make us very upset. Our children stop doing what we tell them to do, you know, and we become so upset, so anxious, so angry. So the point we're making is, this is all pervasive suffering. You can have the fittest body, really, and the most brilliant mind, conventionally, but be a complete mess in terms of not being happy, having much suffering, and causing suffering to others, because our body and mind are not in the nature of purity. They're in the nature of contamination. They're contaminated by delusion and karma. Let me give an example, which came from my teacher, Lama Yeshe. He had a great friend, Lama Yeshe, this Tibetan Lama who born in Tibet, came to India, founder of Tushita and all, guru of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who until recently was our kind teacher, who passed away recently. Anyway, Lama Yeshe passed away in 1984. He had some good stories. Anyway, he had a very good friend in Dharamsala, another Tibetan monk, did a lot of meditation, Okay, very highly realized person. And that person used to come and talk. He would come and talk with Lama Yeshe. They were good buddies, you know. In between his meditation sessions, this other Lama would come and talk to Lama Yeshe at our center, Tushita Center in Dharamsala, MacLeodganj. And one time, you know, they would exchange many things. So one time this Lama, whose name escapes me right now, because I have a terrible memory, you know, there's a small stupa dedicated to him at Tushita Dharamsala. So he came and he told Lama, you know, the other day I fell down quite badly on the steps somewhere in Dharamsala. I fell down. But he said, when I fell down and my body hit the ground very hard, I just felt this tremendous bliss in my body. Anand, mahasukh jaisa anand महसूस होने लगा शरीर में. So for most of us, that would cause pain, you know. Falling down, hitting our body hard on steps would cause pain. For this person, due to the state of his awareness, the state of his mind, you could say, it created bliss. While he still had a human body. This is why I'm giving the example. For most of us who are motivated by delusion and karma, even the smallest cut or something makes us very unhappy, right? Gives pain, physical pain and then mental pain, yeah? And that's another thing. For ordinary people like me, physical pain is not enough, you know. I have to feel mental pain also. चोट तो लग ही गया हाथ में, उंगली में, मान लीजिए छोटा सा चोट लग गया, और फिर अरे बाबा, फिर mental pain. I worry, you know, it creates anxiety. You know, अरे tetanus तो नहीं हुआ, ये वो, अरे घर में बैंडेड नहीं है, blah blah blah, Dettol है या नहीं, you know, थोड़ा सा वो होने लगता है, you see. So we have what the Buddha called two darts. One dart is the physical pain, second dart is the mental pain. So anyway, this Lama, his name, again, I can't recall his name. Anyway, he felt bliss. So you can imagine what his state of mind was if he feels bliss when he falls down, which would give most of us pain. He is feeling something else. So that is showing that samsara is not a place. It's not like Delhi is samsara and Dharamsala is heaven or something. Nirvana. Aisa nahi hai. You can be in your human body, but if your mind has reached a certain level, beyond ordinary ignorance, beyond attachment and anger, then we feel more bliss, more happiness. Things that cause ordinary people pain can cause you bliss. So, but for us, it's not like that. Our body is a magnet for all kinds of suffering. Small things can create great pain in our body, you know? And our mind, we know. Small things make us so upset, so anxious. One of my best friends, I always give this example, one of my best friends, so rich, he became so rich. He was my best friend in childhood. He became so rich. He wanted more. Due to what he started doing, ended up in jail. You know, so somehow we can have so much, but mind is not happy. Mind is disturbed, right? So this is what we mean by all-pervasive suffering. So this is coming from past karma and delusions. Yeah. So we can begin to purify in several ways, and I'm having to go a bit fast now. I do urge you to read this, get this text, which is just 30, 40 pages, 45, 50 pages, sorry, 55, 60 pages, whatever. It's not much, is it? Big print. And it's very useful, written in very easy to understand language. It's not like a shastra or a sutra. Very simple, very basic and good. So, past karma and delusion. What can we do right now? We can begin to stop creating so much negative karma. How do we do that? By being more aware. And being prepared also, I guess, to listen to other people when they comment on certain things, which is very difficult. If people say to you, look, you're being very sarcastic. You're really, you're not using your speech very well. It's a little harsh. Your speech is harsh. Or you could also be exaggerating things a lot or not telling the truth. So maybe you have a very, very good friend or an enemy, and they tell you, don't tell lies or don't talk like this. So we have to be prepared to I suppose, listen. And then there are things that other people can't see, what we think, what we do in our room when other people can't see. So what are we doing, And how are we behaving with other beings? How are we behaving with mosquitoes and cockroaches and other people in the street? How do we behave with people? We have to start watching this very carefully, Am I killing? Am I stealing? Am I engaging in a lot of sexual misconduct? Am I lying? Am I using harsh speech? Am I subtly trying to divide people with divisive speech? Am I wasting people's time with idle gossip? And then am I having harmful thoughts, thoughts of ill will? Am I having greedy thoughts of wanting all the time, wanting mind? And am I having a mind full of disturbing and wrong thoughts, wrong understanding of reality all the time, and wrong understanding of what will create happiness, thinking that only rituals or some kind of pujas alone will create, happiness. Or maybe even I think due to wrong information and habit, I think that even killing animals or people, even some people think doing rituals where you actually kill an animal or a person, that will bring happiness. So all these kind of wrong ideas, I have to be very careful to be free of these things. That's one very helpful thing. So then we at least cut down the amount of negative karma we are creating now. Because remember, we are talking about how every negative karma has 4 major effects. We don't want to experience those effects. The negative rebirth, behaving the same way in the future, experiencing a similar kind of experience according to what we gave to other people, so that if we harshly speak to people, again, we also get harshly spoken at. We hear all that kind of language directed at us. We want to be free of that. We want to be free of the environmental effect, which we also spoke about. You know? So, anyway, there's many examples given on the effects of karma, negative karma. And of course, the worst one, in one way, is how we keep on repeating certain actions from, which are repetitive actions which you have been creating in the past, which explains why certain, little children like perhaps to kill or have no problem, of course, adults as well, of course, and why some people, even from small age, don't like to kill. They get very upset if someone is killing even a little ant, or an animal. Why? So these are habits from the past. So we need to be aware of this. We need to watch. We need to watch very carefully. Yeah. And she gives the example of people who do very nasty things, terrible things, torturing others. It's a habit. It's a past habit. Otherwise, why would they do that? Why would someone who wants to be happy and may even be quite kind to certain people or to their own pet animal, why would they be kind of programmed almost to harm others in certain ways, to be able to torture others? You could say professional torturers who work for governments, whatever, according to the movies, CIA. I'm sure in India we have our agencies who also sometimes use torture. How is it people can do this to other people? Not everyone can do this. I don't think most of us could torture another human being or even torture a small animal. We wouldn't want to do that. For some people, no problem. No big problem. Habit. It's habit. So the most urgent thing is immediate level of practice, says Rinpoche, quoted by Venerable Robina, is stop now. Most urgent is to do this. Deal with what is arising every second. Watch the mind. So we need to purify. We need to purify the karmic seeds that have not yet given their result. It's like a gardener knowing that in the garden there are a lot of very, very poisonous seeds, and it's going to be very harmful, because a lot of children around and other people who won't know what they are, they're going to get hurt, they're going to die, So we have to now also engage in the process of uprooting the karmic seeds we have already sown in the past. Otherwise, they'll keep on giving their results. So there are 4 things. We mentioned them in the first talk also, but we have to go through them again based on this text. So first we have to understand, Robina says that purification is not some external process as it is in a house where we clean it with Lysol and phenyl and all these things, and a vacuum cleaner and a Yamadharni or whatever. This is something we're doing internally. It's a psychological process. So we are speaking of the 4 R's, right? Regret, then we have reliance or refuge, then we have the remedy itself, and then we have resolve. Okay, so what's the first one? Regret. We do need regret, and we all of us, I'm sure in our life, have felt some regret at some point when we did something not right, when we harmed someone, when we upset someone, maybe someone we respect, or we disappointed them due to our behavior, or even if we didn't get good results. So we understand a little bit what is regret. But here we're speaking about a very powerful regret that we need to develop, the kind of regret which should be even more than the regret we would feel if we had, say, taken poison by mistake. Say we had taken poison by mistake. thinking it was some, you know, I don't know, some tonic or, you know, same color, some tonic or, you know, cough syrup, but we later find out that it's poison and we're having very bad symptoms. And then we go to the hospital, doctor, yes, you have to do some very drastic cleansing of our stomach. So why do we go to the doctor or hospital? It's because we regret. It's like really urgent. We feel urgently the need to purify because we are feeling the effects of this poison. So even more than that, we need to feel regret really for the things we have, this negative karma, because it's going back infinite lifetimes and the results it can give are just unbelievably horrible. And they can keep on giving these results endlessly until we have purified the cause. You know, we'll just keep on going on. We'll keep on being reborn. We'll forget what happened in the last life. We'll keep on with these habits. And again, if we're lucky, we'll meet the teachings and learn how to purify a bit, but we might not do it very well or just say, okay, good. I heard the teaching, that's enough. And we'll keep on behaving in the same way. Then we'll die. And then again, we'll be doing the same thing in a future life, maybe not even as a human. But even if we have a human life, I'm saying, still doing the negative things, creating more causes for suffering. And if you listen to the Tibetan lamas who are speaking very straightforwardly, not trying to, you know, put a lot of sugar with the medicine, then they say, look, this is going to be, you know, you're going to have so many lifetimes when you're not a human being. So you won't even hear the word happiness. You won't hear the word dharma or religion, mental training. You won't hear those words because you won't be a human being even. Or if you're human, it would be in a very, very dangerous, painful situation where you wouldn't have the opportunity to practice. Like many beings now, slowly starving to death in parts of Africa or, you know, having a terrible life as a refugee or somebody in a war zone or somebody being affected by multiple weather events like happening now in parts of the world. Recently in this Pacific island, Guam, which became famous in the Second World War. So now they're having multiple typhoons. So those people, and especially the children, they don't have any opportunity to practice anything, you know, to work with their minds. They're just constant suffering. You know? So if we want to avoid that, we need to avoid the cause, which is taking poison, creating negative karma. So we need very, very powerful regret, which is not the same as guilt. We feel guilty, we go to the temple or masjid or mandir and we kneel down in front of someone or in front of Buddha and we say, sorry, 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 you know, please forgive me. That's not enough. That won't work. And you feel so guilty. No, we need to work at it. We need to do the purification. She says, you know, usually we are very neurotic. We blame somebody or someone else. We get ashamed. We become guilty. We're ridiculous, she says. We do everything to avoid responsibility. If we make a mistake, we have to do it. We have to clean up ourselves. At least if we take poison, we might say, oh, the doctors are curing me, but we are taking the decision to go to the hospital, right, and get cured. So we have to do that. We have to take responsibility. Can't just blame. And of course, there's also that famous story in the Buddhist scriptures of the arrow, someone with an arrow in their eye. It must be very painful. And that person insists, however, on asking, oh, where did the arrow come from? Who shot the arrow? What's the wood made of? Etc., etc. At that point, we have to just get rid of the arrow. We have to take responsibility to get the arrow out and heal the wound, right? So blame, guilt, denial, these things don't work, you know. It's stupid. It's ridiculous as trying to find someone to blame for the poison in your dinner. You're dying, but all your thoughts are about blaming. Blame is pretty useless. And this is our typical mode of behavior. Another typical mode is guilt. Oh, I'm such a bad person. I ate poison. I ate poison. Every day you'll get sicker and sicker. And you're thinking just, oh, I'm such a bad person, such a terrible person, blah, blah, blah. So it's completely useless, totally useless. You know, it's the same as blame, but you're just blaming yourself. Totally useless. So one is anger, one is self-blame, and they are the same kind of problem, and they won't do anything. Third one, which is even more stupid, and she's saying a lot of us are addicted to this one also, is to deny that there is poison. So we're slowly dying of the poison, but we kind of say, no, everything's all right. No problem. There is denial. Like a lot of people deny climate change, you know, for example. You know, deny many things. They may deny that they don't treat their, you know, family members well. It's obvious to everybody, but they deny. Or they deny. Anyway, you have to experience it. It's quite something to come to grips with one's own denial, and then certain family members who are, or people you know who deny certain things. So obvious to other people, but that person is denying it. So that we can't do. If we do that, again, no sense of responsibility. We will not do anything. We'll say, yeah, I don't feel so good, but yeah, it's not poison, you know. And every day you're getting weaker and more symptoms, but you say, no, sab theek hai. Sab theek ho jayega, no problem. So this is denial, and it's useless again. So we have to be accountable. It's based upon the understanding of karma, all of this, and on the recognition that we do not want suffering. Suffering is so painful. And actually, if we were to really understand the scope of it, I think we would go crazy for a while. The depth of it, how it's been going on beginninglessly, and it will go on beginning endlessly if we don't take steps now in this life while we are human and have the opportunity. One time, Dalai Lama Ji was asked, what's the difference between guilt and regret? It was quite profound, his answer. He said, with guilt, you just look into the past and you say, oh, I did this, I did that, and I did this. And then you go and say, oh, I'm a bad person. So we assume naturally that if I've done bad things, I must be a bad person. That's how we think. Of course, from Buddhist perspective, nobody is inherently good or inherently bad. We are, basically we are good, you could say. The basic level, deep level of our consciousness is just basic goodness, is Buddha nature. But we can easily trick ourselves into thinking, oh, I am bad. Or with blame, you're a bad person. You're a bad person. You're to blame. And I have very intelligent, I'm sure all of us have some intelligent friends or so-called intelligent who blame certain people for this, certain people for that, as though things were so easy. You can easily just blame one person. With regret, His Holiness said, you do also look into the past, but then you think, I did this in the past, I did this and did that, but what can I do about it? Instead of saying, I'm a bad person, you say, what can I do about it? And then you change the way you think. So that's what regret is. It's wholesome, it's courageous, and it's basically optimistic. Because if we realize that we can clean up the mind, that's a very optimistic attitude. We are not perpetually evil or sick or full of garbage. It can be changed. So you could say regret is like compassion for yourself. You know, it's like the first step is compassion. So you regret what you've done if it's wrong, and especially if we have taken certain vows. Some people take vows, religious vows, not to kill, not to steal, etc. So then if we break those vows, we must have regret and we must recognize. And if we have taken those vows in front of a teacher or in front of a Buddha image, if we're Buddhist, then we have to have that sense of regret and regularly acknowledge that, you know, because we're sick of suffering, you know, and we want to develop and go beyond sorrow and suffering. So although it may not come naturally to us, this kind of regret, guilt comes naturally, we have to work at this kind of positive regret where we are going to do something about it. Okay. There's a lot here in this text. He talks about why negative actions are negative. Basically talking about harm, how it harms others, how it harms ourselves. And this very important point, which happens, I guess, for people also in terms of physical problems, you've got to be sick of your own suffering. We're not sick of our own suffering. We don't really understand it. And we get distracted by our little pleasures and distractions, and we think life is basically okay. Because we know however difficult it was at the office or during the day, I can go home and watch Netflix or have my favorite kind of food or whatever it is, and things will be okay, kind of. It's okay. Chalega. Theek nahi hai, lekin chalega. You know, that kind of attitude. So we have to be really sick of our suffering. That's what renunciation really is. So we have to see these stupid things we do to ourselves and to others. So don't miss this step, Venerable Robina says. Think about this one very deeply. So then you regret the things you did today, yesterday, in this life, beginningless past lives, things you've done with your body and speech to harm others. I regret anything I've ever done since beginningless time to any sentient being. Yeah. Then if we've taken certain vows like bodhisattva vows, then it's very, very harmful to break them, because bodhisattva vow, you're basically, due to your understanding of things, you're accepting responsibility to do as much as you can to help others and to actually work towards your own enlightenment in order to be able to benefit others deeply. So then if you start harming others or wasting others' time and all, that's a very, very, very big breaking of your vow. It's not an ordinary vow that you've made to benefit others, to help them as much as possible. Not just that, but you're saying, I'm going to become an enlightened person in order to help other people. And then you just waste your time, aren't nice to people, don't want to help people, you're lazy, whatever. That's a very, 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 very big breaking of those compassion vows, bodhisattva vows. So we have to recognize that. We must deeply regret having broken those. And then there are other levels of vows, Vajrayana vows and other vows, you know. So you have to regret these in a very big way, because you don't want the suffering that will come if you don't purify that. It's like having done something very, very terrible, then you realize there'll be a big punishment, in a sense. Except here, any punishment, so-called, is something we've created ourselves, for ourselves. It's not like Buddha or God is punishing us. And if Buddha is right in asserting, as he does, that we've had beginningless lives, that we've had countless lives as animals, and that mightn't be the most suffering life, but that's where we do the most harm. Animals, just in their nature, they have to harm others or get harmed. Most animals. Look at one whale, which are also very incredibly sensitive and it seems very intelligent animals in many ways, but look what it has to do to survive. It opens its mouth for one mouthful of one breakfast on one day, and maybe, millions of creatures go into its mouth and die, living creatures, because that's how it eats. Can't help it. So, and we get guilty if we've killed one person. So she's saying, actually, yeah, put your own life in perspective. It's not as bad as an animal. So don't just be guilty and sit there crying. So you see, animals have to go on doing this. They live in that kind of environment, the carnivores. And even cows, eating grass. It's not as though you don't kill any tiny creature. So the harm we have done, she says, to other beings, animals, is inconceivable in comparison to what we've done as humans. So if our minds are beginningless, as Buddha said, and we've had all these lives, then we've done countless things like this, and the seeds of those actions are on our mind stream. So you better regret them, because you don't want that kind of suffering again. Regret all of it. We've got to add the thought, because I'm sick of suffering. If you know the cure to some terrible disease or problem you've had all your life, you're going to run towards the cure, right? If you know there's a cure, if you know there's a doctor who can cure, I mean, embarrassing example, but I might as well give it, I had this terrible hemorrhoid for many years, piles, hemorrhoid. It was such a pain having that in my life, very embarrassing and very, not so painful, but just incredibly irritating and problematic. And then a good friend introduced me to a really good doctor in Mumbai. Because for ages I thought, nahi, isko surgery nahi karayenge, bahut se dusre methods hain, elastic band method hai, ye method, baapre, itne methods hain. Like, and in the end, this good doctor, very good doctor in Mumbai, performed this very delicate 2-hour operation, which is usually much quicker. But he said, for you, your hemorrhoid was so big. So, I ran to that doctor because I trusted the person who had also put me, sent me to this doctor. This doctor had been her supervisor when she was training as a doctor. Anyway, and so much relief, so wonderful to have this good doctor who took the effort, made the effort, and did a good job. So because, I was sick and tired of that suffering. And this is just something very small. I was sick and tired of having a hemorrhoid for 20, 30 years. So those of you who have hemorrhoids know the kind of problems it can bring. Anyway, we're sick of having this continual life-to-life suffering. Always having, constant rebirth. That's why we need to also meditate on the lower realms, according to the teachings. We have to use our imagination and meditate, think about what it would be like to be an animal. What would it be like to be a dog or a whale or an insect or any animal? What would it really be like? What kind of life is that? Do I want that life in the future? Even the best looked after dog in the world, would I really want to be that dog? सचमुच कुत्ता बनना चाहता हूँ या नहीं? सबसे बढ़िया कुत्ता, सबसे बढ़िया pet food, सबसे बढ़िया rose, कोई beautiful comb, कंघी लगा रहे हैं, scent लगा रहे हैं, competition में लगा रहे हैं, बढ़िया खाना मिल रहा है. Would I want to be a dog? Really, we have to think about. Which means we have to put ourselves then imaginatively in that life. Morning to evening, kya hota? Kya karta? Kya sochta? Or what would it be like to be just a starving human being? Maybe some of us have been hungry, really hungry for days for some reason. Not voluntarily. What's that like? You had a whole lifetime like that, sick. Or you're born with AIDS, let's say, already, as an infant in South Sudan or Somalia or somewhere. Then you are poor, there is famine, there's not enough water and food, and there are these marauding tribesmen who come and rape your mother and kill your father and do all these things, rob the village. This is happening in places. What would that be like? That's a human life, so-called, but would we want that kind of life? Or even a life as a very rich person, but with no meaning in their life, except just making money and going to parties and, divorcing people when we get sick and tired of them and just marrying someone else, or having plastic surgery to make ourselves look young all the time. Would we really want that kind of life, even though we might be in the newspaper a lot, quite famous? Would we really want that kind of life? So we have to think about these things, reflect. Or would I want to be reborn as someone who just keeps on lying, keeps on stealing, keeps on killing, maybe enjoys killing, loves to kill animals or fish, steal, So we have to be sick and tired of suffering. This is very clear. So then the second power, the first power, opponent power, which makes it possible to purify negative karma. And remember, the title of this text is that there is no karma that cannot be purified. Matlab, aisa koi karam hai nahi jo ke mita nahi sakte. Everything can be purified, which is actually better than the physical example. There are some diseases in this life we can't purify. We can't cure all diseases. But we can purify every karma mentally. We can purify. So we don't have to experience the result. Okay. First thing is regret. Second thing, reliance on refuge. We take refuge in something that can actually save us. So as a Buddhist, Buddha, the teaching, and the spiritual community. We take refuge, in other words, in the proper guide, something that can guide us. When we've had the stomach, when we know we've taken poison, we don't run to some person on the corner of the road who doesn't know how to cure us. It's pretending to be some kind of great doctor, but we know they can't do anything. There are all these weird things on the road, which they say are this and that. This comes from a lizard, this comes from this, pata nahi kya kya. We don't go there, we go to a proper hospital or doctor who know how to pump out the stomach. We need to go to the right doctor. So we as Buddhists, we go to the Buddha. He's our doctor, he's got the medicine, he's got the methods. Thank goodness we've got a proper doctor. And so that doctor has prescribed certain practices, like the Vajrasattva practice, which, which is what this text is also talking about. Yeah. So here we take refuge in the Buddha, in the practice. We also generate compassion. We have to generate compassion because negative karma, by definition, means we're harming somebody, harming ourselves, harming others. So we develop compassion. The wish to free other people from suffering. And why have we gone to the Buddha? Because one, you don't want more sickness and you need medicine. Two, because you're confident that this person is a good doctor. They have the right methods. So Buddha has the right methods. You don't go to someone who just says, okay, you do this, just do this puja, put a lot of offerings in the fire, and then maybe you can sacrifice a few goats or chickens. And then if you really want quick results, you can try and find some human child and sacrifice them. And then then that's, I'm taking an extreme example. But, we don't go to that kind of person. We go to someone who has the right method, okay? So compassion for regret was like compassion for ourselves, realizing, but we also need the compassion for others. Strong compassion for others as part of the second power of reliance. Rely on the proper doctor, the Buddha, proper method, and rely on compassion, which totally begins to change our mind and make us want more and more to purify, so that we can then help others rather than harm them in the future. Yeah. So with the first thing, we applied compassion based on ourselves. Here we generate compassion based on the more usual meaning of it, seeing the suffering of others, wishing others to be free of suffering. But of course, compassion should also be for oneself, to free oneself from suffering. Why should I suffer? I'm a human being. Why should I suffer? And if I suffer also, it doesn't help other people. If I think I'm being very noble by suffering, it's stupid. Have we ever really felt that we can help others better when we are suffering ourselves? I don't think so. We need not to be suffering. At least certain kinds of suffering we have to be avoiding. We may have a bad back or, certain physical problems and still be able to help others a lot, of course. But we should always want to be free of mental suffering. Fear, anxiety, all these things prevent us from helping others. Okay, so we have to have this, just to revise. I'm sick of suffering, and I also have compassion for others. I'm fed up with them having to suffer. I don't want others to suffer, You feel very sorry for everybody who is suffering. You can even feel great compassion, especially for people who are doing harmful things, because you realize how much negative karma they are creating, how much they will have to suffer in the future. So with this view of karma and all, then there's no blame, and also then no anger towards others. You realize everything is the work of delusion and karma. So you can't feel angry also against other people anymore, because they are dominated by negative emotions. They are like the slave of their karma, and klesh karam ke gulam hai log. How can you feel angry to people who are just totally the victim, almost you can say, of their own karma and delusion? So you feel more and more compassion for people. Okay, third opponent power. One thing also you have to understand. So one story she gives a story of a few nuns. Also, it applies to monks, but there are the 2 Tibetan nuns who had been tortured, sexually abused in prison in China, in Tibet, for years, just because they were Buddhist nuns. And the Chinese, as part of their so-called cultural revolution, they did a lot of terrible things to monks and nuns. So these 2 people were brought to meet the Dalai Lama. These nuns, at the end of the talk and the discussion, they said very quietly, of course, we had compassion for the people who are torturing us, because we knew we had harmed them in the past. So it helped them to go beyond any kind of anger. They didn't have anger towards the people who had tortured them. And I presume also they had a sense that their torturers were also going to suffer a lot from their negative karma. So this is a very huge point. This is why we can't just neglect karma. We really have to give it a lot of thought, because it's based on science that everything has a cause. Otherwise it's just random luck, or the Buddha or someone, God wants it. No, things don't work like that. Nothing in the universe just works like that. Everything has a cause. Everything you can see and hear and taste and touch, think about, has a cause. The suffering has causes. Happiness has causes. At least basically. Of course, we do speak in Buddhism also of happiness which transcends causes, but that's after you've done a lot of work. Then a certain kind of bliss or happiness may arise, which doesn't appear to have any specific cause. But we've done the work, It's like when we begin to cycle effortlessly, it feels like there's no cause. But remember all the times we were practicing how to, ride a bicycle. And it wasn't easy in the beginning. But we created the cause, then in the end it became effortless. It wasn't effortless at the beginning. So third opponent power is the actual remedy. So there are many remedies. We don't have time, and I don't have the ability to teach you the Vajrasattva practice, because also for that we need teachings from qualified Lama or teacher who has permission to talk about that practice in the deepest way. But what we can say here is that what Venerable Robina says, that this practice, you see, of Vajrasattva, a particular aspect of Buddha, and Vajrasattva is the Buddha at the end there, that picture there at the end, the white Buddha, that is Vajrasattva. Specifically, the Buddha energy that is visualized and used for purification practice. And it's a very powerful practice of visualizing Vajrasattva, reciting the mantra of Vajrasattva, which has 100 syllables, all together with all these powers, regret, generating the regret first, and the refuge, compassion, the reliance, then the actual practice of visualizing, reciting the mantra properly as much as possible with a very undistracted mind, and typically to do that in a retreat of 2 to 3 months, in which time one can recite the mantra 100,000 times. And then, of course, at the end of every session, to make the resolve, the fourth opponent power, to, as much as possible, not do those negative actions again. So here, the Lamas say that any practice that involves saying the Buddha's name, or visualizing or reciting the mantras, is hugely powerful, far more powerful than practices that don't involve the Buddha. And we say this because of the power of the object. What does the power of the object mean? This is the teaching given when they talk about karma. Power of the object means, okay, if we were to kill an ant, deliberately, I mean, it's not good. It's not good to do. It's a negative karma. But you see, it's hugely different from killing a human being. And say that human being is your mother or father. You can see how the power of the object is so powerful. For you, the power of your mother or father is much more than the power of an ant. So power of the object. Then we say the power of the object even greater if you were to kill a bodhisattva or try to kill your guru, if they're a qualified guru. See, because those beings, their purity, their work for others, their great compassion and wisdom, if you kill somebody like that, the power of that object is even far greater, even than the parents, you see. So that is a most negative kind of karma, you see. So if we are purifying on the base of the Buddha image of a Buddha, that is far more powerful than, say, saying sorry to a dog, which is good to say sorry to a dog and stroke it and give it some food if you have been nasty to it. But it's not as powerful an object as the Buddha image. Now, we can't meet Shakyamuni Buddha directly, but we can work with images which represent the Buddha, represent the Buddhas. There are many Buddhas, not just one, of course. So doing that is very powerful, the power of the object. And it's powerful for many reasons, not just for some ritual reason, but because of what the Buddha is. The Buddha is someone with total compassion, power, wish to benefit others, great wisdom. So when we visualize the Buddha, that in itself is some purification. You see, my teacher said even that even if you were someone who didn't like the Buddha, you hated the Buddha, and you looked at a picture of Buddha with hatred, said, okay, on one level, that's not good, but because of the power of the object, then for that person, it's better than not looking at the Buddha at all. And that at some point, the karma of looking at the Buddha will give some positive result for that person, in the future. Of course, it's not good to look at the Buddha's image with anger. It's not very helpful because of the power of the object. But because of being such an object, even engaging in any kind of relationship with that Buddha image is something which can give positive results in the future. Because of the vows, the power of the Buddha's mind, their compassion. Buddha is not like Buddha, wants to help Buddhists, doesn't want to help people who break his statues and stuff like that. Buddha has equal compassion for everyone. This is one of the attributes of a Buddha. No favorites for the Buddha. You know, oh, I love Buddhists. You know, Buddha says, I love Buddhists. I hate Muslims and Hindus and Christians. It's stupid. Buddha loves everybody equally. Otherwise, how can you be a person with equanimity and be a Buddha if you have favorites? You know, I love you, but I love you more, and I don't like you. That kind of mind we try to get rid of very early on in the practice, relatively speaking. So, of course, the power of the object. So if we engage in meditation, prayers, mantras, visualization involving this Buddha, Vajrasattva, then this is very, 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 very powerful. It's like an atomic bomb being dropped on the negative karmic imprints. According to some, the fourth opponent power, the resolve, is actually the most important in some ways. Oh, incredibly important. It's the determination that you are going to change. It's not like, okay, I've done this practice, but then we keep on behaving in the same way. We have to make the resolve to really change our mind, change our actions. If we keep on harming people with our speech, we really have to make that effort and responsibility and resolve. I'm not going to speak to people like that. You know, I'm not going to use my speech in this way. If you can't own responsibility for what you've done wrong, you can never make really the decision to change, can you? Because you don't want to own that experience. So with regret and then determination to change, you're really becoming accountable. You're willing to take responsibility and do something. You're growing up, finally. We're becoming mature. We're becoming your own friend. That's why this practice is so crucial to do. Not just to say, oh, I've done my Vajrasattva mantras for today. That's not enough. It's just not enough. You've got to think through the 4 steps: regret, reliance, actual remedy, and then resolve. Psychologically really profound. It's being your own therapist, as Lama Yeshe, our teacher, put it. There's also a booklet of his entitled Becoming Your Own Therapist, where he's talking about how it's the Buddhist attitude. We're responsible for being our own best therapist, you know. We have to clean up our own mind, based, of course, on valid instructions. Things really shift if we can do this properly, because this is where we get the courage to know that we are in charge of our lives and we can change. We can change. Because it's the power of our own will, our own determination to change. So this 4th step is so practical. Make the determination not to do it again. So if you have taken vows that you won't kill or lie or steal, then you need to keep on reminding yourself of this. So every time you say, I'll never kill, it's like digging that groove deeper in your mind. It's not enough to say, oh yes, I took vows 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I vowed I wouldn't kill, but you never thought of it since then. No, you have to keep on reminding yourself. You can't say, oh, I'm a pianist. I played the piano 20 years ago, and I never thought of it since. You have to be a good pianist. You have to play every day, right? If every day you say, I will never kill, I mean, excuse me, guess what the result will be, she says. It's not rocket science. If every day you say it, then that will protect you every day from killing, because you're reminding yourself. It's obvious. It's so embarrassingly obvious. But we forget these things. So we need to keep on reminding ourselves. I'll never kill. I'll never steal. I'll never lie. Of course, Rinpoche very skillfully says, if you really feel unsure right now, you shouldn't say that. You say, okay, I'm not going to kill today. You know, I'll try not to kill. I won't kill today. And then tomorrow you can say, okay, I won't kill today, and I won't kill tomorrow as well. And then build it up until you can say, I'll never deliberately kill. Are there any exceptions to this? Well, yeah, if someone comes into your house and you ready to kill you and your family, what are you going to do? You're going to stand there saying, I'm not going to kill. Well, in extreme case, you may have to kill. But then again, you would purify. And you would not kill out of tremendous anger or greed. You would kill just out of necessity and maybe even with compassion for that person. But this is not saying you can allow other people to do terrible things and not defend yourself or your family or friends or whatever. But by and large, when we vow not to kill, we vow not to kill. And if we break that, we have to purify. There is one story in the tradition, of course, very famous, where in a former life, the great Bodhisattva who later became the Buddha, he did kill someone. But that was due to his special power, knowing that this person was about to kill many, many other people. This person he knew was about to kill a lot of other people and steal their money. So out of great compassion to protect that person from the negative karma of killing and to protect the other people from being killed, the Bodhisattva killed that person, knowing that was the only way to stop them. And then he regretted. He said, look, if there's a negative karma, I will accept the results. But it turned out that was actually a good karma because of the power of the compassion and the wisdom and actually saving beings from death and saving this person from creating terrible negative karma, killing, it said, 500 other people. But we have to be very careful before we start killing people and, saying, oh, I'm protecting others from suffering. We have to have the wisdom and compassion of a very, very highly realized person. So we need to be careful. In the fourth step, maybe you can't say, oh, I'll never be depressed again. But you could make some humble decisions. Okay, I'm going to watch my mind like a hawk. I'm going to do my best tomorrow. So any vows you've taken, you must remember them, reiterate them at this step. Yeah. Take things at your own pace, make decisions every night with this practice, and change will come. We can mold our minds into any shape we like. Lama Zopa Rinpoche liked to say that. Like putty, like clay, we can mold our minds any way we like. We're the boss. We have to remember that. We have to have that confidence, that courage. Yeah. So then she gives a description of the Vajrasattva practice, which most of us here are not qualified to do, but you would, just in general, we can say one would visualize Vajrasattva in the space before us. Imagine, taking refuge and reciting the mantra, and much light is coming. Light and nectar is coming into our body, purifying all of the negative karma. We feel it's all coming out of our body like dirt, Very powerful light and nectar we visualize coming into our bodies, completely purifying our body and mind of everything negative, It all leaves our body. We feel very calm and clear and fresh like that. Then at the end, we imagine Vajrasattva becomes, dissolves into us. We become one nature with Vajrasattva, which we are truly, we are potentially Buddha. Every one of us is potentially a Buddha. We have that capacity. There's nobody in this room or in this world with a mind who doesn't have the capability at some point to become a Buddha. That comes with having a mind. We have that potential. So we imagine that we've become oneness with the Buddha, and then we rest in that state, in a state of happiness, understanding of reality also. Nothing is as solid or independent as it appears to be. So all of this is done as part of Vajrasattva. And of course, in the middle of the practice, we recite the mantra. So typically, when I did this retreat many years ago in Nepal, you would do, I can't remember, 500 or 600, 700, maybe 500 of those mantras in each session. And you do 3 or 4 sessions a day, right? So you're doing like, what is it? You're doing 2,000 to 3,000 mantras a day with those 100-syllable mantras. It's not a 6-syllable. It's not like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. That's very quick. You can do many, many a day. But this is a 100-syllable mantra. So you could do, anyway. So then within 2-3 months, you can do 100,000. If you can't do that, then you just do some every day. You try and do some of these mantras every day. Maybe 100 of them every day. One mala, which means 108, 110, or 108 of them every day. So then how long will that take? Any mathematicians here? You do 108 a day. How long will it take to do 100,000? Each year will be approximately 37, 38,000. No? Is it? 100 times 365. So then, 3 saal mein ho jayega. Or whatever. But anyway, one can do, it's good to do quite a few together, then you build up a good momentum. Just doing 100 a day is very useful, but good to do a retreat. Yeah. So these 4 opponent powers are like a great blessing, aren't they, from the Buddhas? It's like having the best medicine for a particular disease. You have the best medicine, you know? You feel so happy. And that purifies you of the physical disease. So this medicine, psychological medicine, put together by the enlightened mind of the Buddha, is not taught up by some, just some Buddhist practitioner who had a few good experiences in meditation, not like that. This is put together by the Buddha, this practice. And doesn't have to be Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. There are billions of Buddhas. Shakyamuni just happened to be the main kind of world teacher of this particular part of the eon, who has a karmic connection with us. And so he is the world teacher of this time. But it's not like there's only one Buddha in the universe. There are countless Buddhas, countless. Because you see, people like you and me can become Buddhas. There are countless. Yeah, Anand.
You talked about how we build up some bad things to others. To basically prevent that person to do harmful actions against others. You said that was in a way a good karma.
Because he killed him, yeah, stopped him from doing that, yeah.
I'm saying in a similar context, we have the encounter that police does. And right now in the news, in UP, Yogi Adityanath has instructed all the police guys to kill in encounter a lot of these groups who are operating. So is that a good karma?
What do you think? Do you think the people who are doing the killing have the compassion and the equanimity?
People are killing people or they are troubling others. Do you think it's the right way to look at it?
No.
In the same context?
No way. The Bodhisattva's action of killing that merchant who was about to kill 500 others is totally different, because the Buddha had clairvoyance, he had great compassion, great wisdom. The people engaged in the police or whatever engaged in encounters don't have that level of mind. Plus, a lot of these encounters may be killing people who are maybe not so bad, or maybe they, yeah, maybe they, who knows what they did or didn't do. Otherwise, we can just go around killing people who we think are dangerous, you know. Let's just do that. Just go around killing people, go into Tihar jail and kill people who have killed and who, when they come out, you think they might kill people again. So just go in and you can just start murdering one another, you know. Then some mayhem.
It's not always good to kill.
Huh?
It's not always good to kill.
It's almost never good to kill.
Basically, kill someone who is harming us.
No. If you have the mind of a Buddha, then you can consider it. But consider also that the Buddhas haven't been doing much of that kind of killing lately either. Because otherwise you might think, why didn't they kill Pol Pot, Hitler, Mussolini? In sab log ko kisi bodhisattva ne Buddha ne kyun nahi mara? There's also such a thing as collective karma, which cannot be changed easily. You know, so why didn't the Buddha stop, I don't know, Trump, or why haven't they stopped the war in Ukraine by killing the leaders on both sides, or killing the arms manufacturers who are laughing all the way to the bank? You know? Why don't the Buddhas do this? Things aren't so simple. Billions of
Venerable, I have a question.
Sanjay ji, yeah.
You know, I have a question that, you know, like you gave example of the nuns, and they said, you know, they are also very much, you know, they realize that their tormentors have also been tormented by them in the previous lives.
Yeah.
So are the karmas very specific? You know, if I am hurting somebody, I'm being hurt by somebody, and that person was also being hurt by me. The
What
specific person.
It can be that way if there's a very powerful karma between people. For example, somebody I know was told by my teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, late Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that the problem you are having with these people, and I won't say more because I don't want to identify this person, the problem you're having with these people is very long-standing. It's coming from many previous lifetimes. That's why you're having this problem. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. That's why you're having this problem. It's not going to go away in a hurry. You just have to generate karma, compassion for these people. Because this person was having a tremendous pain and suffering coming from very close people. And so was suffering a lot. But once, you know, Rinpoche had told the person that, look, this is a very long-standing thing. Best you can do is to accept, in the sense, and just generate compassion and accept the situation patiently, because it's a very long-standing problem which has been created over many lifetimes with these people. So, you know, the grin and bear it.
Yeah, that becomes easier, you know, like people who are tormenting us, and normally we think, why me? But if we think this way also, we have done the similar things, and it becomes really little more, you know, give you freedom to relax and also to purify your actions, you know, that you're weakly done bad. It's not that you are a saint or you have been a saint.
Rinpoche was very skillful with this person. I think they realized that with this person, they couldn't just say to them, you know, this is the karma, you have done this to them, that's why they're doing it to you. He didn't use that language. He just said there is a long-standing, you know, negative connection between you all for many lifetimes. So you just have to accept and you know, purify, purify through patience and compassion.
Got it. Yeah.
Also, he knew that this person wouldn't want to do necessarily traditional Buddhist practices. So didn't give that kind of advice, but said patience, compassion, you see. Because you don't want to make the problem worse, you see, by reacting in an angry way. Because that's what it seems had been going on for many lifetimes. So cut the continuity of the anger and all that, generate compassion and patience. And that person now has accepted a lot, and it's much more calm, I think, about that situation. Yeah. But I don't think it's like, oh, if I kill this person, they will come and kill me in a future life. I don't think it's always like that direct. But if we harm and kill, then we tend to experience that in the future in some way. Being harmed by others, having sickness, short life, people close to us die young, so on and so forth, like that happens. But I'm sure there are also cases, absolutely, where, yeah, this being comes back, you meet again in a future life, and help each other if you have a good karmic connection, and don't if you don't. For example, Tibetans say, and I mean, they take this for granted. I was told this. I was told to go to a particular doctor for a problem I had. And then the Lama told me the reason I'm suggesting this doctor and not someone else is because you have a good karmic connection with this person. What does that mean? That means you have a good connection with this person from a previous life, because I have no idea of this person in this life. But if you have a good connection, you have benefited each other, or you've benefited that person in the past, then you have more chance to be helped by that person's medicine, even though they may not be as famous or as whatever, supposed to be as good as some other doctor. But if you have the good connection with them karmically, then that Lama had the ability to see that and send me to someone who would be more beneficial. So it's like that in the positive sense, but also if it's negative, that person has the capacity to harm you. If you have a bad karmic connection with a doctor, it's possible that without their wanting to, their medicine can harm you. Wrong medicine, or wrongly prescribed, or whatever. By mistake, past the expiry date. Could be many things. And then, of course, also there are these cases, horrible cases of nurses and doctors who use their ability to kill patients. In many cases, regularly. I'm just reading a very horrible case from England. This nurse who seems clear had killed many babies, not by strangling them, but in much more by doing things when nobody was looking, taking out the tubes that needed to be kept, whatever. But so you don't want to have that karma to be a baby with a nurse who likes to kill babies, Or doctors. We've had a share of doctor deaths in India, doctors who kill people. So we need to go to a doctor. We don't have that karma with him. He doesn't want to kill us. Yeah. This is one of the hardest topics. Many so-called Buddhists don't accept karma in this way, understandably in one way, because it's a bit heavy and it's not in tune with materialist thinking, which is like, I'm going to believe whatever I can somehow easily see or understand. It's not so easy to understand because it involves past lives, doesn't it? And therefore, seeing consciousness as something other than neurons, brain matter. But anyway,
we had a quick question, Kabirji. This is directly related to the Vajrasattva practice, but it's not personal. I myself I'm not very regular with the visualization practice, but I use the mantra. But I was having a conversation with a friend whom we have been in touch since the last retreat which we had gone together. So she has, she feels she gets more on the edge when she would do the mantra for long.
Sorry, could you say that again?
So, so this friend feels she's far more on the edge when she chants the mantra regularly.
On the edge?
What is that? This is the exact words. I'm just quoting her, and so I'm wondering whether is this a particular emanation, a form which is more stronger or gentler? Is there any, or should this be a discussion which is done more privately? So I was
really, but yeah, you can visualize anything. You can visualize Buddha of compassion, light coming from the Buddha of compassion. You can visualize Manjushri. You can visualize any Buddha. But Vajrasattva is used because it's said to be particularly powerful and specific for purification. Just like you could go to a different doctor who's specific for a certain problem, whatever. So I guess when you say she feels on edge, you mean what? Intense, anxious? What did she mean?
Probably intense and yeah. I mean, I don't share this because I feel more settled. So I was it's an academic question in some ways because, I'm not sure. Would it be because the particular Vajrasutta emanation is more strong, more wrathful? Is there a possibility? I mean, sort of.
I think it depends a lot. The lamas who are clairvoyant, they give different practices for different people. We even do some people, as you know, get prostration practice prescribed for their purification. So 100,000 prostrations. Very powerful practice, incredibly powerful, used by Tsongkhapa and others. Prayers and prostrations to 35 Buddhas, again, 100,000 of them. And so for some people, that's better. Bodhisattva isn't so good. One will get told by one's own Lama what is the best thing to practice, in general. And the sign of being on edge is that one hasn't done enough purification yet as well, or is not doing the practice correctly. It's too intense, it's not relaxed enough. With all these practices, one has to be a certain level of relaxation. Just because you have tremendous regret and are afraid of suffering of samsara, doesn't mean we do these practices in a state of terror. Of course, there may be crying and other things happen during this, but it's not like we should be tensely doing the practice. There's a certain skillful way of practicing, isn't there? And most people are stressed out and don't know how to relax or go into practices with a sense of focus and ease combined. People can be much too revved up and uptight. So being uptight just leads to this wind disease called lung, which can be very uncomfortable, and you do feel on edge, and you can actually become sick with wind imbalance through not being relaxed enough. So that could also be her problem. Thank you. People have all sorts of reactions. Tremendous anger can come up and be purified. Lust, all sorts of things. Pain, of course, in the body, especially with the prostration practice. People can have a lot of pain because the prostration practice is very amazing. Doing all those movements, it works on the subtle body as well, on the inner energy channels. The whole full-length prostration works on the inner energy channels, just as the Bodhisattva mantra does, but in a more subtle way, perhaps, the mantra. Both very powerful, but yeah, again, only a qualified teacher really can tell a student what is better for them to do at what time. And they may say both of them should be done. Both the practices should be done. Maybe the prostration's more for the physical karma to be purified, maybe, and Bodhisattva for more the mental karma. It could be many things. That's why we need a qualified teacher, you see. That's the importance of the qualified guru. The really authentic qualified guru can tell us what's best for us to do right now. And we'd never be able to really say ourselves with that degree of certainty, the way a qualified teacher can tell us. So this should not be done without recourse to a qualified teacher who gives you the proper introduction to the practice also. This is just general, what we're talking. And hopefully it will make people more interested in the practice and in general practices for purification, where we can visualize a Buddha and visualize light. That can be done by anyone at that level. Okay. So 8:30, we got our money's worth again, I hope. And
I had a quick thing to add.
You had a quick thing to add, like the topping, huh?
It is, yeah. So like he was saying, we have a theory, like he was talking about, like we should kill bad people. Is it right to kill bad people?
Is it right to kill bad people?
So there's a theory in law which talks about that capital punishment is not the right way to deal with criminals. And actually, it is the deterrence theory of deterring the crime. So by killing a person, like we hang
like the theory of hang till death. Yeah. So people think when there is a very heinous crime, that person should be killed. As a society, we kill that person. But actually, we're suppressing that, and that is creating more crime. So there is that theory also. And there's an American lawyer who has been writing and has fought many cases on this. And in Tihar jail also, there is a movie, there's a documentary film. It is called Doing Time, Doing Vipassana.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is an experiment, you could say, that we've done on criminals, and they've cried, and
it was one of Lama Yeshe's students, actually. She was a negress, very wonderful woman. She helped introduce, well, also, of course, Kyanam. What was the name of the police commissioner, the lady? Kiran Bedi, of course. But also, this other nun had, a lady before that had also introduced. You see, the point is, if you feel human beings have Buddha nature and have the potential to be good human beings and to wake up completely, then you don't want to kill them. You want to give them a chance also to repent, to regret, to purify their minds, and then become useful members of society. Otherwise, someone steals something, you cut their hand off, means they can't do anything useful with that hand for others in the future. And it also makes their life unbearably horrible, and I'm sure doesn't make them happy with society to have your hand chopped off. It just leads to all kinds of mental problems also, guilt, fear, whatever, anger. So better to let them keep their hands and to give them good work to do in jail. Of course, that requires effort, requires political will, requires many things. But so much can be done if we recognize the potential of human beings and don't treat them as inherently bad and therefore need to be punished or killed. That's like law of the jungle. Tooth for a tooth, eye for an eye. Vengeance, like in mafia, whatever. Someone kills one of your family, you have to kill one of them. Blood for blood. So that's not the Buddhist way. It's not the spiritual way. It's not the Christian way, actually.
But sometimes if someone actually has done something very, very wrong,
yes,
and I'm saying the rarest of them time,
as they say,
basically a life sentence.
Life sentence, okay, yeah. But then you give them also, ideally, the opportunity to recognize, to regret, and to change their way of life, which has happened in certain cases in jails in America, where nuns especially have gone to visit hardened criminals who have changed amazingly in jail.
In higher case, in that he gave, I think, one person given a death sentence. The higher case,
one was given sent to juvenile.
Yeah.
I think there should be some system of rehabilitation. I think the law is somewhere wrong. I mean, it's not the Buddhist way.
Anyway,
there is
this can be discussed more.
Humane way of.
Yeah. So the point is, purification is best. Either you help someone in jail to purify by giving them useful work to do and some spiritual input, which can be amazingly helpful for people. Some have become great practitioners in jail in the States due to the influence of the nuns and the teachings. So at least we can do that for people. They may not all practice Buddhist purification, but they can all benefit from the 4 steps: regret, some kind of reliance, some kind of practice, and some kind of resolve. And of course, in jail, I'm sure many of them can easily generate the thought, okay, I'm not going to do that again, I'm not going to do that which put me in jail. And if in some cases the person is actually innocent and is in jail, and some people have been on death row, and when they're innocent, then they have more inner work to do. They have a lot of forgiveness, they have a lot of work to do. Imagine knowing you're not guilty and you're on death row, not just life sentence. Anything would be bad, even a 2-year sentence for something you didn't do would be horrible, right? But if you have a life sentence or death sentence, then those people can also benefit a great deal from the right way of thinking. You know, of course, they can still appeal their sentence, but with the knowledge that it may not work, knowledge of death and impermanence, karma, people take it to heart. There can be some very intense experiences people go through when they're in that state, you know. If they have the right input, it can be very beneficial. But again, you need a jail where there is that kind of space, that kind of governance that is allowed, not the kind of attitude that these are evil beasts who just have to be kept in horrible conditions and, you know, let them kill and sodomize each other as much as they want. That kind of attitude. State of jails in the world is pretty bad. Keep on reading about jails in the Americas, for example. Of course, in India, we have jail like Jahanabad jail. Well, they all escaped, but that's another matter. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everyone. There may well be some teachings between June 15th and August 15th, although that is designated as the break for Tushita. And just to let you know that in the next 14 days, we have quite a lot lined up for you. And you can just, you know, look at your WhatsApp group thing to see. But just to give people here also a little bit, what's happening is, whoops, so sensitive, these phones. You press the wrong thing, then you go somewhere else. No, I don't want to wait a moment. It's saying, please wait a moment, and I don't want to. Anyway. So we have Venerable Jamyang, who's a nun, who's taught at Tushita before, and she will be coming here on the 4th, I believe, and she will be teaching on compassion, I think, on bodhicitta. And I can't find it on my mobile right now, I'm sorry. But can you find it on yours, Anil? It was given recently. Super Rinpoche. What stops? Anyway, there will be these teachings starting on the 4th, which is a very important day in the Tibetan Buddhist calendar, Sagadawa. There will be teachings in the morning. It's so infuriating, isn't it, when the technology doesn't work, because this phone needs purification, actually. It is very full, and I keep on getting messages to clean out stuff, and I don't know how to do it properly, so. Huh? 4th June in the whole program. It's written in one thing, isn't it? Thank you very much. There we go. So on the 4th June, this was given yesterday. 4th June at 5 a.m., optional. You can take the 8 Mahayana precepts at home. 10 to 11:30 at Tushita, there'll be recitations of sutras. Sutra remembering the 3 jewels, Shakyamuni Buddha practice. Then 11:45 to 1 p.m., remembering Lama Zopa Rinpoche, rejoicing in all his projects. That is a practice we can do. This is all on Sunday the 4th. Then, it hasn't got the other program. Okay, and then she's also teaching, you see, after that. She's also teaching after that.
On the 10th, Kabirji.
Huh?
On the 10th, she's got a day long.
No, before that. Oh, I've got it now. 4th, we have what I just said. 5th June, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. 5th June, bodhicitta teachings. Also 6th June, 6:30 to 8:30. And on the 8th of June, 6:30 to 8:30. Then on the 11th June, 10:30 to 12:30, and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. 2 sessions on that day. I think it's a Sunday the 11th. Is it Sunday the 11th? Yeah, Sunday the 11th. This is an announcement that went out on Monday. Yeah, on Monday. 11th June, then 12th June again in the evening, 13th June again in the evening. Anyway, this will be posted, but just so you know, a lot of teachings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of teachings. I mean, something happening on 7 days. 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, 11th, 12th, 13th. And then, so very kind of her to give all those teachings. I'll be away some of that time. From the 6th, I'm away. So very kind of her to come and teach. So highly recommend it. You come to those teachings. And yeah, so for now, we'll dedicate positive energy of this session. May it not be wasted, the positive energy, but may we use it to understand more and more the purification practice and put it into practice so that we can cut the continuity of suffering. So purify the mind, cut the continuity of suffering, and then have the space and energy and to be able to develop realizations of the path, accumulate the positive energy needed for full development of wisdom and compassion, which can lead us to Buddhahood, not just liberation, but Buddhahood. So may we never be separated from teachers who can teach us this path, from authentic Dharma. May all our teachers have long and healthy lives and all their wishes be fulfilled. May we also dedicate, of course, for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's reincarnation to swiftly appear and to guide and teach us again, as he did in his previous life, 77 years. So for 45, 50 years teaching in that life. May he again manifest for our benefit. Okay, so thank you all very much. Who's 4 people online. Thank you, Navinji, Sujitji, Dibs, and Koili Banerjee. Thank you very much. And everyone here at Tushita, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Sorry, I didn't look at the chat, so there may have been some questions I missed. No, just reminders, yeah. Good. Thank you all. Good night. See you, Navinji. See you on the